I am love, I am light, I am peace. I am love, I am light.
So I would love to welcome today Roger Richards. Hi, Roger. And Roger is a spiritual facilitator, and I attended one of his online groups this last week, which was fabulous, where he worked with angelic energies. Sorry.
Oh, thank you.
Pleasure. And he worked with angelic energies, and he's doing some great work out in the world. And, you know, we'd like to put a message out there today of about spiritually connecting at this time on the planet, and about utilising our inner resources and our inner foundation in order to be able to get through this period of time on the earth, which is an extraordinary transition period, and we need to really utilise our full resources, I think, at the minute as well. So that's what this show's about today. Hopefully give people inspiration and positivity and upliftment. So welcome, Roger. Fantastic to have you here. And I'd like to start by asking you a little bit about your background. If you could tell us a bit about your background and what led you to this point here with your spiritual journey.
Okay, thank you, Medina, and thank you for the compliments. And it was a pleasure to have you online in our group the other day too, and hopefully we can reverse the roles here and have you as my special guest as well.
So, I love it. Thank you.
Okay, well look, I was brought up in a fairly normal materialistic kind of lifestyle with a lot of friends who mention anything spiritual to them and their eyes sort of glaze over and they look a bit strange at you. So it's been a little bit of a lone wolf pathway there for a while. But I've had three siblings, two brothers and a sister who in our family who've passed away at different times. They've always been little wake-up calls as to why am I here and why aren't they here? And so I've always valued being here, still alive on the planet, you know. So I've always asked the question, now, why am I here? And what's the purpose of being here? And there's been little triggers right through my little lifetime that I've had here so far that have made me ask that question. And at different points you come across different philosophies and so forth. And as part of that, when I sort of branched away from my Catholic upbringings into a more general spiritual philosophy, I found it very difficult to get information. This is before the internet was a big thing. It's about 25 years ago now. So what I used to do, I used to find people who I knew were mediums or clairvoyants or whatever, and I used to put on information evenings in Melbourne, around Melbourne, in little community centres, so I could learn and bring other people along for the journey. And as part of that, I ended up in a little spiritual church down in Bentley at the time. And the little old lady, I say that with great reverence and respect, who ran the service that I stumbled in at, she sort of collared me afterwards and said, oh, you need to come down here Tuesday night and sit in our development circle. And I didn't really know what a development circle was, but I thought I'd go with the flow. So I sat in this circle and there was these people in there who were going into light trance and speaking from spirit. I didn't realise what they were doing. I just thought they were making this stuff up, or that they'd come in with pre-planned talks and speeches. And then they were doing... Look, they were doing clairvoyant readings and intuitive readings on each other in the group. And after going there a few times, I realised that these people were for real, and what they were saying was very profound. And I thought, why doesn't anyone know about this stuff? You know, this shouldn't be a secret. And the wisdom that was coming through some of the trance work there, I thought the whole world needs to know about this kind of thing. And I just know there's a lot of people out there in their lives who've been brought up with their spiritual connections by the kind of society that we're in, and we need to know where to go. For a lot of people, the Eastern philosophies have survived, you know, the yogic streams in particular, but the Western esoteric and the Gnostic streams have been almost crushed, and that's where some of us have our roots from, even from lifetimes gone by. So
Right. But there's a fantastic YouTube channel at the moment that I recently discovered called, I think it's called We Are Channelers, with Kevin Moore, and he talks to a whole range of top, channelers and mediums around the world, and that's a great resource, as well as yourself, of course. So I think there's more opening up now in terms of being able to see people channeling. It's becoming much more commonplace, I think, now. And as people are awakening, there's more of an audience for that sort of thing, for people to be open to that wisdom and to that knowledge in that platform.
And the other thing I like, this is another thing I've learned from it, is that, first of all, you've got the intellectual content that is channeled through. But if you're more so if you're sitting in the presence of someone who's doing it, but it does work online too, there is a power within the mood and the tone and the sounds of what is spoken, more so than just the meaning of the words.
Yes, the energy behind it that you can pick up if you just tune in. Yeah.
And what I suggest to people, if you're listening to something online and from anyone who's channeling it or had channeled it, is not to listen to it intellectually, but to sit back, go into a meditative state and take in the vibration more so than the meaning of what is being spoken, and it resonates in quite a different way.
Yeah.
Now, one of the things that I work on, and other mediums work on in their groups, is soul development as distinct from the intellectual development. And to understand and learn about the spiritual worlds, well, the fact is that our English language is quite restricted. And spiritual expression can't actually really manifest in our language.
True.
I'm also a full-time school teacher in Steiner education, and Rudolf Steiner, who set up that stream of education, he was a great spiritual leader. He was a master clairvoyant. Not that word gets used with him for various reasons.
He lived the angelic realm and all those types of things as well, and the elemental realm, and he talked about so many, such a broad spectrum of things, didn't he, encompassed with his knowledge.
Yeah, so I was getting back to this. We cannot render spiritual realities into our English language freely, but the other aspect of these groups is soul development. So what is it that feeds the human soul and unlocks the potential of the human soul? And generally speaking, it's not, and it shouldn't be restricted to intellectual knowledge. There are other things, and sound therapy and so forth are wonderful things. And even one of the things that we do in our sessions is a chakra opening exercise, and people just becoming aware of the chakra centers, and it's more an experiential factor than an intellectual one. The two go together.
Yes. Can I ask you why you think it's important at this time on the planet, with everything that's happening, at the moment in 2020 and the lockdown and everything like that? Why do you think it's important to develop yourself at a soul level spiritually? What can people really gain from that when they go into that, fully, when they commit to their own spiritual evolution?
Well, the first danger with the phase that we're still in, and it's sort of gone from the COVID situation now to the situation with the riots that are occurring within the demonstrations, and these. The way the mainstream media reports them, it really lowers one's vibration. Everyone sort of feels there's something very wrong in the world. Now, COVID's actually been a wonderful thing it's been a polarity. Now, there's a large group of people who are drawn into the mainstream media side of it, but it's also been a wonderful opportunity for people to slow down, to switch off from their work, to reconnect with their families, particularly those who have children, but to others to sit back and just start to recontemplate their life and who they are.
Yes, to that inner reflection, that time to go inward, because our world has been in the past so geared towards everything external, that our whole focus has been on the external world and how we function in that external reality. But this is really pushing us very deeply, metaphysically, to just work on the inner foundation that we have, and that's going to support us through this transition process so strongly, I think. So that's a great point. Thank you.
So what has happened during this during the shutdown in particular is that you've got a group of people who've really just self-indulged or had to continue their work life. There's others who sort of went through a period of self-indulgence and suddenly started asking the question, well, hang on, maybe there's something else I should be doing here. And they've started searching around or and there's this opening up of what is it that is really happening in our world. Yeah. And then through processes of inner reflection, they start finding things. And I'm finding people coming in to or exploring or finding the sessions that I operate along with other people around the world who are just asking the question, what is this world about? And, and they sense something greater than just the material aspect of themselves. It's very important to maintain your core equilibrium. So the way that people have had the handbrake put on in their lives, they've had time to stop and contemplate things. And a lot of people are now asking the deeper questions and the spiritual what ifs. And they're going to different places, including to the different facilities or services that you offer, Medina. The more people inquiring in my groups as to what is going on in the world and how do we fit into it as well. And there's people like ourselves who are already, somewhat awakened or enlightened. I say somewhat because we've still got a long way to go in our evolutionary paths, that's for sure. But we've been able to find time to meditate, to switch off from what the media is saying and finding the deeper revelations that are within what's happening in our world.
Yes, yes. And switching the perspective and seeing this whole thing that we're going through in some ways, and I know for some people it's been very challenging and my compassion goes to them, but it's also been an incredible opportunity to make a 180-degree turn and shift the human paradigms and the human perspectives on how to be in the world and what it is to be alive. So I think that's always like a period for opportunity and rebirth in the way we look at things and how we can have an accelerated path through this process if we unify instead of, unless, they're trying to create a lot of division with everything, I believe, going on at the minute. But if we actually unify and utilise this as that opportunity that it is, it's going to really help us as a species. And so, yeah, I think that's a good point. So what's your thoughts in terms of, I know that you're very connected to Mother Earth because you talk about Mother Earth a lot. How do you think Mother Earth is viewing all this at the moment?
There's been a number of events that have happened this year, particularly in Australia. Where before we had the COVID situation, we had the very significant bushfire situation in Australia where, it was recognised around the world that Australia was effectively burning.
Yeah.
Now, it's also, I got the cold shivers now because I've just put two and two together with something else, Medina, and this will be a little bit... hopefully this comes across in a sensitive way. I don't want to trivialise what I'm about to say. But you've got to think where Mother Earth was in terms of the way that we have, with the terms of air pollution and so forth on Mother Earth. Okay?
Yeah.
And then we hadn't really addressed it as humanity. There's been a lot of voices who are saying it's time for change, but then you've still got the coal industry and the oil industry defying or denying these aspects. And we've had this problem with Mother Earth, us not looking after Mother Earth. I'll get to the punchline in a moment. Then we had the bushfire situations in Australia where our skies and the cities were choked. And we couldn't breathe, okay? Now, we couldn't breathe because Mother Earth couldn't breathe. And now we've had this situation with Floyd, who the gentleman in the US who was murdered by the police, where he said, "I can't breathe." So this whole theme of "I can't breathe" is popping up in different ways, like a little thread. I didn't realise this until we spoke. And the other little thread I wanted to put into this is that after the COVID situation, there are people in the world, particularly young children, who for the first time in their lives in major cities, particularly in India and some of these other countries, have seen blue skies for the first time in their lives.
Absolutely.
They've been able to see the sunrise.
Yeah.
And some of them have seen the stars at night for the first time. And for them, it's quite a spiritual experience.
Yes.
Now, some of us oldies who are running the show on the earth may still take our earth resources for granted and continue doing what we're doing. But hopefully there's more younger people coming through who are now seeing the blue skies and the stars as a gift, as something that's a rarity to be valued and treasured. We're going to also step up and start saying, no, we've got to do something here.
Provided an opportunity for Mother Earth to have a break and to be able to stop a lot of the industrialization and you know, a lot of that energy and the pollution that was created by that was stopped. So then it could function more normally and have an opportunity to re-energize and revitalize herself. And then, of course, the animal kingdom were coming out in extraordinary numbers of flamingos, gathering together in Indian cities, and all sorts of amazing animal and bird life also being impacted in a positive way. So, yes, it was an opportunity for Mother Earth as well. And great, like you point out, for children to be able to really have the chance to see Mother Earth in a different light and be able to honour her more fully now with this opportunity to see things that they hadn't seen before.
Medina, I'm sure that you and most of your readers or listeners have heard of Dr. Emoto and the water tests that he has done, where effectively not just water but other samples where they've exposed it to effectively thought vibrations and the effect that thought vibrations have on matter. So if we can now think about the awakening that Mother Earth is having and the rumblings that are manifesting in terms of bushfires and other things that are happening around the world, and now look at what's happening with ourselves with the COVID situation in particular, and now the situation with, you know, that every life and Black lives, every life matters, Black lives matter, that it is now waking up this more sense of compassion within human beings as well, so that we're waking up on different levels as well. We're triggering one another, but at the same time it's resonating with Mother Earth, and it's this theme that Mother Earth and humanity are ascending at the same time, which apparently is quite a unique event in the universe. Normally a planet may ascend or a people may ascend, or the beings, but not the two together.
Yeah, that's true. And I think that's actually a positive testimony for humanity, because it is now ready to awake. And so all these events are happening because we are awakening and we're collectively wanting to move forward and make spiritual progress and to shift. Otherwise, it would have kept the same status quo. It would have remained stagnant. So actually, that's a positive indicator that we're moving forward. And I think that we are noticing a great awakening among humanity, where more and more people are sort of experiencing life in a bit of a different way, and expanding their questions about life, expanding how they think about life, questioning and re-questioning things that maybe they thought of differently previously. And I think that this is an opportunity to grab hold of in terms of really working towards manifesting something better. And what you're talking about as well is to be able to raise our frequency so that we're connecting with Mother Earth on the inner, maybe meditating, sending her love and peace, and connecting with other human beings, a whole of humanity. Today I did a global meditation in my pyramid. You can see my little pyramid over there. So that was great.
Uh-huh.
Which magnifies the energy incredibly, by the way. It's amazing to meditate in.
I understand. Yeah, I totally get that.
Love it. And so if we all do our own personal journey where we're all contributing and taking responsibility in that way, and just being aware of our own inner vibration and core energy, if we're not feeling good within ourselves, well, then that goes out and impacts on everyone else. So what do you do to maintain a high frequency and to be vigilant in terms of your own vibration in the world, Roger?
A combination of things, Medina. Now, some things are just things you do in your daily life, and just walking in the park, walking in the bush, walking in nature, but being present when you're in nature as well, and also giving gratitude to nature rather than just dropping your worries and troubles there, just giving acknowledgement to the nature spirits, for example, as well. And apparently our acknowledgement is what feeds them. That's one of the things I've learned. So being in nature, I do some artwork with children at school. I'm not an artist, but if you're painting or doing anything artistic and creative, you are connecting to another place as well, and that can be rejuvenating. Now, one thing that I do, this is why I moved out of poor cold old Melbourne, is that I love going into the ocean. And I used to surf, to try and surf, and I used to get hammered and used to get out and it was freezing cold, and I used to think, why do I feel so good? And this is 30 years ago or whatever, when I was a youngster, and I only worked out a year or so ago why I felt so good, because someone told me, I heard, that the best thing to cleanse and balance your chakra system is to be immersed in salt water.
Yes.
And
yes.
Yeah. So, so this surfing business, it's nothing about surfing. It's about going out there and touching your chakras. That's what's going on.
So you could put Himalayan salt in your bath, and then that would have a similar impact. Because I do that. Put Himalayan, because I'm not as close to the beach as you. So I put Himalayan salt in my bath. So I'm hoping that works just as efficiently. And Epsom salts are good as well, I think.
Yeah. And look, I often find that even if I don't go in the water, if I'm by the ocean, it usually takes me about 45 minutes just walking by the ocean, and then I can feel the change. Yeah. The same effect as if I went into it. Yeah. So that time. Now, there's a lot happening down at the beach because you've got the combination of the earth, the water elements, the air, of course, and if the sun's there, you've got the fire as well. So there's something alchemical that happens, and plus the salt is quite an energizing, cleansing factor as well.
Yes.
So you've got those natural things that you can do.
Mm-hmm.
And but on a meditative level, there's a little lesson I got taught a few years ago in Melbourne, and I went to see a fellow who was a healer, and he said, "Oh, look, just come over one night and I'll take you for a little trip." And I thought, okay, sounds good. So I just laid down, and I don't normally see things, not at that point in my life, but I just laid down on his massage table kind of thing, and I looked up at the ceiling, and I could see this purple light around the ceiling. And I said to him, I can see this purple light. And he goes, they're my family, they're my helpers. And I was a bit surprised that I could actually perceive this, So anyway, he just closed my eyes, and he just took me on what I thought was a very, very simple guided meditation. But within about 5 minutes, I was just in a state of bliss that I was almost laughing because it felt so good. Okay. And then I've worked out since then through Dr. Bruce Lipton and his work and his basic theories that if you, we as human beings, we've all been knocked around emotionally in our environment growing up as young children or whatever. And so we aren't necessarily in a pristine spiritual soul state. But and some of us work under stress, we have stressful family situations or work situations or whatever. It's not easy to have a blissful ride through our physical dimension.
True.
But if you can take yourself into a meditative state and experience, at least some peace, not necessarily if you can get to bliss, even better, but if you can hold your organism in that state, everything harmonizes. And I believe you can resolve a lot of potential health issues. If you can, because what you feel on an emotional soul level resonates right down into the physical. So I think that's quite important. And also you can find clarity.
The inner mental chatter that goes on and creates stress, and also preventative, like you say, so that you are able to prevent energies coming in that will, they come in first on the outer levels, don't they? The etheric, the astral, and then they come into the body, the emotions, and the physical body. And then if you don't address them by that stage, they can start to create health issues. So really important to get them before they come in.
Exactly, yeah. And another little strategy, I don't do this all the time, but I used to do it over a period of time that I learned from Steiner as an esoteric development strategy. And it's just before you go to sleep each night, to review your day in reverse order.
Okay.
And just go through the events of the day. And at first it just seems like a very simple exercise, but two things: it takes a bit of mental discipline to do it. Yeah. But the other thing it does, it settles down a lot of the thought processes and the stress issues that you not take into your sleep. You can go more freely into your sleep dream state. Yes. And therefore to go deeper into the spiritual world when you're astrally released from your body.
Oh, that's a great tip. I never heard that before.
But the other thing it can do when you're aware, he used to talk about this thing of being able to read the occult script in your day. And this is as to why do things happen to us. And quite often when you go back through these things in reverse order, you might just get stuck on one thing that happened. And then you suddenly realise what's behind it, and you suddenly put two and two together and have these realisations, of course. And if you feel like you're going around in this broken record situation in your life, this is one way to jump out of the groove.
Self-awareness of, why it's happening. We are the creators of our reality, and so we need to be hooked into what we're creating. and the other thing I wanted to make, that's a really good tip as well, I think, is to, before we go to sleep, say if there's something that you're working on in your life that you want to perhaps heal or transmute or find some sort of clarity on, go to sleep and say, I'd really like to resolve this issue while I'm sleeping, and put your intention out there for that as well. I think that's a great tip as well.
So if you can trust and hand these things over, I also believe that your angel or whoever works with you in the spirit world, you can work more freely with them. Yes. And then you're more open and receptive and not cluttered by it in the morning, that you can then receive the impulse to move through it.
Fantastic.
So, apparently some of the great inventors and scientists in the world work this way, and they used to wake up in the morning with the answer.
Yeah, true. Very, very helpful. I like to give helpful ideas and tips as we're talking. I think that's a great thing at the moment as well. So appreciate that. That's great. Well, we've had a wonderful chat. Maybe we'll have to have another one shortly and film that as well. Is there anything that you'd like to leave the talk with? I don't want to go for too long tonight, but is there something else that perhaps that you would like to leave as a final message of, that you think might benefit people at this time? What's perhaps some final words of wisdom that you'd like to share?
Well, it's probably not my wisdom. It's probably someone else's wisdom, and it's really going within to understand yourself and to know yourself and who you are at this point of time, and what your triggers are, etc., etc. And when you fully understand these sorts of things, which I don't yet, but I'm working on it. We're all a bit of a mystery.
We can all say that.
Yeah. But if we work within ourselves, then we'll develop more the empathy and the compassion and the understanding for everyone else around us as well. And Look, a lot of people do play the blame game and look outside themselves, which is a little bit of the ego getting in the way. But if we can sort of put our ego aside, go within, work on ourselves, and just that striving to better ourselves and then to reach out in compassion and empathy and love, it just has this knock-on effect to everyone around us.
I think facing the fear of what there is that we're going to confront, when we go inside, that's what stops people, because they have this big unconscious fear of, oh my God, what am I going to find when I go in there? But I promise it's not going to be as bad as what you think when you do confront that fear. And I think if we want to evolve, it is about facing fears too.
Well, I'll give you all a tip. When you go down and you peel the layers of the onion away, you'll get to the point, and it'll be in the depths of your heart, and there will be a divine spark in there.
Yes.
A divine spark, and maybe it's almost moulded by everything that this world has laid on top of it, but it's there. It's inextinguishable.
Yes.
And we can light it again. You can light it again. The spirit people can help you light it again. And you can shine. It doesn't matter what happens in the physical world. There's a reason behind it, and you can shine through it. Simple as that.
That's right. Perfect.
Behind every cloud.
Yes. It's a great time to find your spark. Now is the moment.
Yeah.
And if you've already found it, which a lot of people listening here would have, to ignite your spark even further, so it's radiating even more. Beautiful. Well, thank you so much, Roger. It was really wonderful chatting with you today. You had lots of great things to share, and also the energy behind your words as well. It's palpable. I can feel that. So thank you, and we'll have to reconnect again soon. That would be fantastic. Thank you for your wonderful work too that you're doing at this time.
Okay, thank you. And if anyone wants to check me out, spiritualonline.org.
All the details below.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. And hopefully we'll connect sometime again online with some of your listeners and indeed with you, Medina.
Fantastic. That would be wonderful. Thank you, Roger. Fantastic. Have a great night.
Okay, many blessings to you all from above.
Bye.
Okay, cheerio.